Hey everyone, my name is Neha and welcome to Dropping Your Armour, where we listen to stories from thinkers, doers, and dreamers in the hope of unlocking our infinite human potential. In this episode, you'll hear the story of Maysoun Ramadan. She is a pharmacist by training and has had an amazing career in the healthcare sector, leading awareness campaigns and communications, as well as leading the HR agenda for Roche in the Middle East. Now, in her current role as D&I partner for Roche Global, she's doing what she's most passionate about, building an inclusive organization. I've personally known and worked with Maysoun for over 3 years now, and believe me, she is a powerhouse of inspiration and drive and a true role model for women in leadership. I'm so glad that I had this conversation with her, and I mean, it's definitely something I personally needed to hear at this point in my life, and my hope is that there's something in there for you too. We dove deep into the topic of health and how it's easily overlooked in today's competitive and fast-paced life, and what might be the consequences of that. Her experience of finding meaning through grief and channeling those emotions into a source of energy moved me deeply. I personally gained a lot from this conversation, and I hope you do too. So, hey Maysoun, welcome to Dropping Your Armour. I'm super happy that we can have this conversation today. How are you doing?
All good. Hi, Neha. Thank you so much for, I would say, making it happen for this very, very interesting, amazing, I would say, platform and initiative. And also for, I would say, giving me this opportunity to share, discuss, and I would say, drop my armor, as you say it.
I love that. I'm super grateful that we can do this now. And Maysoun, before we start talking, and I know we will not shut up once we start, but before we do that, do you want
Yeah.
to say a few words about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So, for the listeners, my name is Maysoun Ramadan. I come from, I would say, diverse origins. I would say, half Jordanian, half Turkish, with Palestinian origins. I'm a mother of two beautiful kids. I consider myself a lucky wife who is very, very much supported. I'm very much connected to my siblings and my dad. And I think I get inspired by seeing my kids and how I wish them to become one day. I think that what keeps me on all the way and all the time. I'm currently in the corporate world. I would say I've been in this world for the past 15 years. I'm actually very much fulfilled, if that would be the right way to say it, as I do actually believe in following your passion when you do anything. And I think I'm currently in the right address, if that would be the right way to say it. So that's about me.
I love that. And for those people listening, I've known Maysoun for almost, I think, more than 3 years now. It's been a while. And I have to say, she's one of the most inspiring women I've met. She's so strong. She's, with a lot of integrity, a lot of love and care, but also super fierce. So I really hope you will enjoy this conversation. I got to learn a lot from Maysoun over those years. And I hope you'll find this conversation inspiring too.
Thank you, Neha.
And
Maybe it's
yeah.
likewise too, if that would be the good time to share, because indeed I really enjoyed working with you, and I think the way the composed approach that you've always brought into very difficult, challenging discussions and conversations has been something that teaches a lot of people, and it taught me a lot as well. So I think that's a good call out. I need to share.
Oh, that's really sweet. Thank you. Okay, Maysoun. So before we get into the hard talk and the real talk, I wanted to start us off with a light check-in question. And for us, I've picked out this one. So if you could live in any movie, film, television show, which one would it be and why?
Interesting question. Probably I would pick a talk show like Oprah Winfrey, or there's a TV producer and a lawyer, a Turkish one called Arman. And what is common, I would say, between these two, I would say names I've mentioned, is the fact that they bring in real life stories and they get to shed the light on experiences and the learning of humans coming from different parts of the world. Most importantly, different, I would say, industries, backgrounds, very diverse, I would say, and they tell their own stories and I would say, how they started where they are today, and how they would like to, I would say, move on into their future. So that kind of a platform or such kind of programs do inspire me a lot because it's real. And I think that would be maybe not a movie or series in Netflix that you could have expected from me, but I would go for definitely like a talk show, I would say.
I love that. And actually, I can totally see you rocking a talk show. I can completely see that. I mean, I regularly follow everything that you share on LinkedIn, on other social platforms, and I can see you being that person who creates that dialogue, right, about issues that are important to a lot of people. So yeah, I would definitely watch your talk show, Maysoun. I think you should go for it.
Let me think about it then if that's the case. You never know what happens, right? And thanks for the feedback.
When I was thinking about this question for myself, I think I went down a little bit more of that traditional television show route. And for me, the show that I would most want to live in right now would be Friends. And for multiple reasons, right? I kind of feel nostalgic for the 90s and early 2000s right now with, like everything that's going on in the world. Like there were also problems back then, right? But I don't know. For me, it was just a time of a lot of safety, exploration, experimentation, and just, yeah, I miss that time. And I think Friends was always something that felt like home to me, with that, feeling of companionship that you share with your friends, and also like a lot of laughs that I've had with that show over the years. It's still my go-to comfort show, when I'm feeling down. So definitely would be in Friends.
That's so cool. I mean, definitely it's a show that I would say probably everyone loves that show. It's amazing. And during the COVID times, I think it helped a lot of people because that's the tough time where you need a little bit of fun, an element of joy. And I think Friends actually does that. I don't know if you got the chance to watch also their reunion. There's a show.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you have to watch that one. I probably watched it 4 times, literally, like over and over again. I'm not the fan of flying, and it gives me sometimes a bit of fear. And the only thing that apparently was a good tool for me is to watch Friends or that reunion that they have on one of the very long flights. I didn't feel the whole thing. It made me happy, but the most important piece is the fun element that it brings, which also reminds us all the time that we need to look for aspects that would bring fun and joy to our day and night, because we need that mentally, and our body also needs it, I would say.
Yes, absolutely. We all need that joy. And I will watch it. I haven't watched it yet. I've been putting it off because the show was so great. I didn't want anything to sort of make it
Do it.
worse. I was not too happy with some other reunions that came up, but
Oh my God, no,
okay.
do it,
This I
and
will.
call me after you do, please. I
I
want to
will.
hear your feedback.
I will.
You will laugh a lot,
100%.
that's for sure. And you might cry too, actually. There were lots of emotional moments there. I did actually shed a few tears because as much as they talk about their own reunion in the past, they also just reflect how long it's been there. And when we used to watch it long time ago, and we still watch it until today, for me, that was a very interesting notion. So it's a mixture of beautiful emotions there when you watch it. So I would say very good choice, and I would salute you for picking that. And it's not traditional at all; it's really cool. And let's talk after you watch the reunion, please.
Definitely, definitely. Okay. And you already, we started talking a little bit about health already. You said something really important right now, that joy and laughter is very important for our health. And I want to deep dive into this topic with you a little bit. And
Sure.
maybe to kick us off, can you share how your understanding and relationship with health has evolved through your lifetime, and how you even got in the space of healthcare as you are right now?
Interesting. So let's talk about positive influence, as they call it. I mean, I think growing up in a family where my father is a doctor, he's a gynecologist. So that's apparently one of the very positive, I would say, aspects of influence that I had in my life as I was a child, because we used to wake up late at night. I would say my dad is around just getting dressed in the middle of the night or in the middle of very cold winters to drive to the hospital in order to be part of a miracle where a mother is having a child. So for me, that was my probably important piece of my childhood as I grew up. My mom was a lawyer, and here I comes please I would say probably the context of looking at equity and fairness and being there for the good. I think that's a nice combination of what happened to me as I was a child and how this contributed to how I think about things and how I see certain things. So that's one important element. And the healthcare piece, I would just honestly say that I mean, healthcare is a beautiful domain where you're there for a good cause. You're trying to help people and help patients. And I think that was a strong trigger that aligns with my personal values as an individual. And being part of that in any way is always important. Now, looking at healthcare from a perspective of STEM, like science, technology in the sense, and women in that space, that's also an additional, I would say, trigger for me. Like having more women in this domain and space has been very important, I would say. The final topic here that is important for me to share, my sister was the first one in our family to join the corporate world in healthcare industry. And she's someone who I really not only admire because she's my sister, but I look up to her in many ways. And she being in that, I would say, industry, and she helping me to understand certain pieces on the diversity of aspects I can find in healthcare were absolutely good reasons for me to knock that door and kick off my, I would say, career in that space. However, I should also mention that luck also has I would say maybe not luck actually. It's the hard work and the networking, just to be more specific, because I was asked to join the Roche as an organization, and I was headhunted, as they call it, around like 16 years ago or 15 years ago. And that happened due to, I would say, the hard work probably that I was able to, I would say, surface there, and the networking in the sense of people knowing each other and getting the chance to share a voice and accordingly get that opportunity. So I would say that was also an important door opener for me to be part of a corporate world in healthcare domain in a company that really I would possibly and easily say I call it my home.
Mm. Wow. So it seems like it was almost like, I don't know, like it was like serendipity, right? You had all of these beautiful, like you had your parents as role models, your sister also giving you a different angle to healthcare, right? Not just in a traditional sense, but also looking at it from the corporate side of things. You worked hard and were approached by an amazing company like Roche, right? That also influenced and shaped your being in healthcare. So it seems like a lot of these things came together to bring you. And I wonder, like, through this time, I know this is also a very difficult time for healthcare professionals. You know, you see a lot of burnout, you see a lot of fatigue around, you know, not just with COVID, but in general. It's an industry which requires that you really care about people, and it may not be expected of pharmaceutical companies or corporations, but I know Roche is also one of those companies that actually really goes above and beyond for the patient. So for you, what is it that kept you going through this after this initial sort of attraction into healthcare?
Yeah, I think the initial piece would be, first of all, having a career that fulfills you, and that comes from your objective and your mission in the sense. And I think you've alluded into that very nicely. I'm in a domain where our main target is to make sure that we support and help patients. Patient could mean anyone, even yourself sometimes, and your close members of the family and beyond. So that's one piece which has always been at the background, even thinking about what keeps me, I would say, always moving forward or always energized around this whole perspective. The second piece would be definitely the the ability to confirm and be conscious around the challenges that you go through, and making sure that you ask for support, because no one can really do it alone. And for me, as a working mom in a corporate domain, and I do believe that maybe not calling it demanding, because that won't be for me the right way that I see it, but I would say a domain where you need to be engaged in order to be able to give. And for that to happen, you always need to have a support system. The support system can come from the organization where you belong to, or you feel that you belong to in the sense, and you contribute to. That's important indeed. That's a number one, I would say, important piece, but as equal as the support system that you have from outside your organization. In my case, it was my amazing husband, the support I have here back home. I would say friends whom are as an expat, as my family is not around, my close friends are here, my family. So these are the different, I would say, opportunities that you try to unlock in order to bring the best format that would support you to move on and go on. However, the only thing that I would definitely say is everyone has a reason why you feel that you want to continue in a journey. And this could be, to the earlier mentioned point, your passion, your mission, both of them combined, finding the right place that I would say mirrors your own values and your ambitions in life. But there are always, like I would say, additional as well, probably reasons why you want to do something and you want to achieve further. I mentioned also the fact that for me, my kids and how they really motivate me is something that I cannot put into any sentences, I would say. But there's also a reason why I think this is important and how I want this to be cascaded forward to my kids and have them become also successful in the areas that they wish to be and desire. That probably would be due to my own personal experience and what I have been through, and how I decided to look into the challenges and the ups and downs that any human goes through. And in my case, I have my own, and I decided to look into it in a way that um, gets the best out of it. So, probably those would be the reasons in a nutshell, if you want me to summarize it without going into details. I'm more than happy to share details as well, of course.
Yeah, and I would love some details, but I want to pause here and really bring that together, because I think your message is a very important one, right? You said that there is the meaning or the purpose that you have that drives you forward, and then not just that, that alone will not do it, right? It's the people around you, your support system, and that's so crucial. Like we have there's so much research out there about people who are experiencing, for example, burnout, right? That they cannot do it alone. There's the whole self-care industry that's geared to make you feel good in where you are, but that's not self-care. Self-care in the end is something that you do with people, with your social group around you. So that's super important. And then I am curious to hear what was that your own experience that makes you want to be that sort of role model for your kids, and maybe dive deeper into that part of your life of what you experienced that makes you want to continue in this healthcare journey.
Absolutely. I think, indeed, I would probably just echo what you've mentioned in that context and maybe add to that. Like in my case, maybe it's an interesting one, though. I mentioned that I was headhunted, and at that time, when I asked to join uh, the organization, it was in a very specialized area in healthcare, which was organ transplantation. And back that time in Jordan, it was a very niche, I would say, specialty, and very few centers would even do that kind of surgeries. It was really something, I would say, very advanced in the sense of technology and the innovation that you need to make it happen. Yet it was such a big need because a huge amount of people would need to go through such a surgery where they have a problem or their organs are shutting down and certain organs could be actually transplanted. And for me, when I was joining, I'm like, what is this niche area? Even when I'm studying pharmacy, because I hold that degree in the sense, I was like, even when I studied at the university, we were not talking much about it, except maybe few insights around what are the drugs that you use, and not into depth. Let me put it that way. That was my initial like immediate reaction when they were like, this is an area and we would like to join and to be part of this and to lead this, I would say, disease area. I did not think twice, because at the end, the outcome was it's around helping patients in a topic which could be new or we would like to reinforce. So I took that to today, I can say, a very strong, beautiful decision. And I was part of the organization. And since then, I was really in a beautiful domain and space, fulfilling, to your point, my purpose. and trying to have as much as possible contribution to the society through, I would say, medical specialists, key influencers in the country around that disease or those kind of, I would say, healthcare challenges. And what was very interesting, Neha, which that's when I say I do believe in coincidences. Um, I got married, I left the country. I'm now based in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. I started my family here, of course, few years, it's been like even not few years, it's been years ago in the sense. And being here and having that change as well was also an important part of my journey, because that's when you experience being not around your family, trying to create your own family. But going back to the story here, in one of my visits back to Jordan after I moved to the United Arab Emirates, I realized that my mom was not feeling well. And in one of the immediate attempts was, Mom, let's go get you checked. And I got the chance to contact one of the, I would say, immediate healthcare professionals who I used to work with, and I used to, I would say, be in good relation due to my previous role in the space of healthcare with Roche in Jordan back at that time. And it was a very interesting moment where I got the news that my mom actually has liver cancer, and that the only way and solution for her as a solution and innovation was having a organ transplantation, Neha. So from all that very irrelevant situation that I'm being headhunted to join a certain space in the healthcare, I would say, domain, to be someone who needs it one day, that was for me a very important turning point and a big milestone in my life. And from there, of course, the roller coaster started, where we wanted to make sure that we manage and we get the best help that my mom requires and needs. My superstar hero, my sister, was the donor, so she did donate part of her liver to my mom. And it was for me maybe the most, probably I can openly say it's the worst period and moment of my life. And unfortunately, my mom, after having a very successful surgery, getting the chance to be with her for some time, she ended up even attending a wedding. It was like every minute made a big difference for us. I can't forget the fact that she even cooked for us a very delicious meal that we always wanted her to cook. So we've got the chance to experience those beautiful moments only because of those innovations that such kind of an industry and such kind of responsible contributors to the society exist. And me being part of it is something that I'm so proud of. Nevertheless, unfortunately, we lost my mom. And that was probably, again, the even more worse moments of my life. As anyone who would lose a beloved person, I think there is nothing that would explain what grief is or what it could look like. And in my case, I think it was a very difficult moment to feel it, understand it, acknowledge it, because that's very important. You need to acknowledge that this is happening. And that is something I read about, of course, when you go through such kind of trauma, what do you do? So grief is important, acknowledging that is important. And for me, it was what do I do with it? So I had only the option of either going for me being always unhappy with it and just thinking about it, blaming myself somehow as well, of course, because I used to run a lot of campaigns on early detection, and I never thought of my own mom. So this to me also is a big uh, situation that brings me a lot of pain until today, I would say. At the same time, I had the option of thinking, so what do I do with it? The moment my mom left us, that was in a very gray hospital room. I won't forget it. I just hate even thinking about of that image, and probably it was a dark moment for me as much as it was a gray room. um, I would say I felt what it means to have a strong woman in your life. That was one, and it was also important for me to see what it's meant to have a strong woman, even if she's not alive but still around me.
Yeah.
That legacy piece where I felt there's a lot for me to think about. And I think combining these both together, I have decided since that moment to look at it in a different way, see what does that mean to me. And that's why I first did a very interesting diverse career shift into a role in communications and public affairs, where we talk and we really work in the space of awareness campaigns. How can we make sure that people get to know about primary prevention, helping their health, to be aware and conscious about yourself, not when it's too late. That's one. And the second piece also, of course, me understanding the role of a woman and the power of women in general, and what they can do in the sense of contributing to the society, and how their legacy even can contribute to the society. I think from that very painful experience, those were the two pieces that stayed with me. And building on that, I did kick off something. Did the pain go away, Neha? It never did.
Mm.
Does it stay until today? It stays until this very moment. I can remember that moment where the machine did that beeping sound in that hospital room. Until today, it's like now happening. But I think we need to see what we can do. And the final piece that I want to share, that on my mom's, I would say, farewell anniversary, if that would be the best way to say it, I have uh, I've got the chance to be given a beautiful gift, and I somehow call it it's from maybe God and my mom too, because I had my first child, Denise. It was exactly on my mom's farewell anniversary, exactly 1 year after that. So I felt that these are all messages that keep me alive and put me in a situation of you should be positive, get the best out of it, not forget it, nobody can forget it, and see what I can do to make sure that she is proud, because I know she watches over me and she's always around. And that could maybe summarize my story in how does healthcare mean a lot to me, and why having a purpose is important, and how you can connect your purpose, your fulfillment in your career, to your personal story of what you've been through and what you would like to achieve with them all.
Wow. Maysoun. Yeah, I am calibrating what to say because your story is it fills me up. It's so much, and there's just so much there in what you shared, right? Okay, I need a moment to even.
I promised myself I'm not going to cry, so I'm not going to do that. But I would say maybe I hear you. I understand where you come from, Neha, indeed. But I think let's look at the beautiful side of the story. The importance of family is big. And when you have that coming together, it's even bigger. And I think losing my mom did show us all as well how much she was able to bring us all together. And that to me is and was the trigger of women can do a lot, whether they're in the working space or not working. For me, that's at the end a choice, which both are right. It's a choice and both should be respected. But at the end, that I know that women can bring a lot of value. And I think that was one of the good outcomes I have experienced through what I've been through and what this life put me through. And I'm sure there's many other listeners who would relate to what I'm just sharing,
Mm.
because grief happens to a lot of people and to everyone. And it's very important to know how to deal with grief, because it could lead to depression, it could lead to, I would say, stressing yourself even more. And everything is a possibility and everything can happen. There's nothing that says we shouldn't go through these things. It's just important to be conscious and acknowledge what yourself and body is going through, in order to, I would say, to be able to manage it yourself or with the help of people around you. Could be family, could be professional help, but it's all combined.
Mm.
And here, Neha, maybe if you allow me, I would just share that I felt that I was going through that line somehow where, yes, I have a lot of passion and I want to do a lot because I have that energy and anger inside me combined. I did realize that I used to spend a lot of hours just trying to do a lot, sometimes stressing myself a lot because I just want to prove a point and I'm angry too. until you reach a point where you realize that you need to take a breath. Otherwise, you have people now who depend on you. Could be your siblings, could be your parents, could be your close friend, could be your partner, your own kids. And that was an aha moment for me, like, oh my God, like I want to do something. I want to make something out of it. I want to take it and turn that grief into something positive. But am I overdoing it to myself? Am I stressing myself too much? Am I pushing too much? Basically, those are the pieces that I would openly share because it's important to be conscious.
I think the story is a really important one to know that ultimately it's the meaning that you find out of it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, grief stays with you. I can't even begin to imagine, like, losing a parent is probably one of the hardest things you can go through as a person. And that's honestly one of my biggest fears, to lose someone I love is absolutely my biggest fear, and probably the hardest thing that I will also go through in my lifetime. But your message is a really beautiful one, that you need to accept whatever you're feeling, and also make some meaning out of it, right? And it's going to stay in your life, but it doesn't need to overpower your life or the people around you who depend on you. And I just want to thank you for sharing that story here.
Thank you, Neha. I think you shared a very good point there, saying that it's something that gives you a meaning, and based on that, you do and build on what you wish to do in your life. And I would add to that, it also should give us a learning on top of the meaning. And the learning for me was health is important. And we're going through very difficult times with our new ways of working, the COVID-19 that hit the entire world, how things are changing at schools. A lot of women are in the situations where they need to manage different perspectives. Same for parents in general. I don't want to make it gender specific, but I also see from, I would say, female colleagues, female friends, how it's not the easiest to handle what happens back home with work and kids and school. And I think it's really important to remember that your own wellness is important. And I always say, and I said it in one of my LinkedIn posts, it's important that women get the chance to be conscious about their own health so that they won't leave behind them motherless daughters, because that's painful. And I think if there is anything that we can do from our side, let's do it. But when I talk about this, I don't really only mean chronic diseases or diseases like cancer. I really mean things like basic, your mental health, your regular wellness, all combined. How much you're able to stop going on and on and on without putting a stop for yourself and say, no, I want to pause, I need to pause. How are you able to control your agenda? By declining certain meetings where you want to make a point saying, I'm not available. If we want to do it, let's do it in another time. I think there are certain things that we do to ourselves without noticing. And we have this fear of, I don't want to miss anything. And we have this aspect of, am I good enough? When you combine them all, you end up working a lot, not being satisfied with what you do, trying to bring your perfectionist eye in a way that pushes you more and more and more. And you might end up reaching a point, maybe not having a chronic disease like a cancer or beyond, but this could be a basic starting point for you having very stressed body, overwhelmed body and mind, which could potentially lead to bigger and more, I would say, serious illnesses in the future.
Absolutely.
So if that would be the best message to share, that would be my second best message to share in this call. That be conscious about that and look at the simple behaviors that we can do during our days to make sure that we bring the mindfulness and we take care of our own wellness as we try to fulfill our career, our passion, and our purpose.
It's a really, really good message. And it also makes me think of, how we're always better at giving advice to someone else as opposed to applying it to yourself, right? Like, it's always easier to share with someone else and how they should take care of their health. And for me, and I was always saying that to my parents, right? Like throughout COVID, I'm like, no, go exercise, and like to the point where they're actually scared of getting my calls these days, because every time I call them, like, are you exercising, are you eating healthy?
Yeah.
I'm like the health dictator. But for me, the moment where I realized that I needed to take care of my body, and health and well-being is as important to me as it is to anyone else, was during COVID, when 2020, I had insomnia for about a month and a half. I just could not sleep. It just wouldn't happen, and
Yeah.
it left me in a complete mess. I dropped, like, I don't know, 6-7 kgs in very quickly. I was not sleeping. I was not eating. It was just the worst time for me health
Yeah.
wise, and that was for me a wake up call that I need to change something about the way I'm leading my life. And I am curious, what was it for you that made you shift this focus of health onto yourself?
That's a very good question. I think, Neha, I would just add one piece there, because two things play a role in that shift. One is your environment, which is again your support system, your friends, family, whomever you call a support system, and your workspace as well. And for me, again, this is a space where there was a huge focus in our organization on wellness and what do we do, what tips they share, and how much supportive they've been. Especially that I've been in a space, I would call myself very blessed, actually, that we've been part of the COVID-19 situation with a test that's been there. So I think that's one piece which is important to share. It's one part, which is the surrounding and the environment. The second part is your own self, and how do you drive that yourself. I think the starting point for me was to really look at simple, tiny behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
And that is derived from my working activities, because I'm at the end a working mother, and I need to combine what I do with the kids with my agenda and what I have on that agenda, right? So maybe I alluded into that earlier. For me, simple activities of making sure that I have not 1 hour but 45-minute meetings, where I give myself 15 minutes to just walk around in the same room. You would laugh now if I show you, but I have here my dumbbells. So in any moment I have some time, I just stand up next to my desk and I do like 5 and 10. And this has been always new. What shifted that is that I got diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, which is called the Crohn's disease. And it is something that has to do with the immune system, and everybody knows that immune system is affected and has a huge impact depending on your, in the sense of psychology and stress level, in addition to other triggers like food, and I would say your diet and your exercise level. They're all connected at the end. So the mind, body,
Mm-hmm.
exercise, food intake, all that, I would say, is at the end one circle for me. And probably that was one of the major triggers, me saying, you know what, I'm still young, I have been always talking about this. Then now I'm also seeing that in my body, it's uncontrolled, not something that I can control. But I know that I really diagnosed it very early because I do my checkups continuously, in the sense. So that was an important shift and trigger. And for me, I would conclude by saying the most important, I would say, literally game changer for me in that area is to be conscious about what I'm doing in order to make it better. And conscious meaning that I make up my mind, I decide, and I act. With that, shorter meetings, taking an hour for a walk, or blocking some time for focus where I can just work on certain things and I stay away from meetings. Because this new COVID era also made us think that our life is all around back to back meetings, while we forgot what we've been doing for
Yeah.
ages, where our one day was not always meetings. We had some time doing this, that, talking to people, having face to face meetings, or discussing certain things which are not related to a particular meeting topic. That to me was a good realization. What did we unlearn? What we should learn back again, and how can we bring a nice fusion of everything as we are operating in our day-to-day activities. But in conclusion, consciousness is very important, and taking the right decisions in the right time and at the right moment is also very critical. And the willingness to show that change, I would say, Neha,
Hmm.
the willingness to take that change is very important. Nobody can force you.
Yeah.
Nobody can tell you, please do that. You will never listen. It should come from deep inside. And the only way to maybe make anyone think different is if they imagine themselves losing their health totally, what are the consequences of that, and how many people will be impacted by that, which is what I've seen in my mom's story. When she left, how much difficult it was for us as individual and as a family.
Yeah, yeah. It really puts things in perspective, right? Is that back-to-back meeting day really in the long term, is that helping you, or is it just like a coping, you're just running on the hamster wheel and going with your day? And I think it also makes me think about how, like you saying we need to think about it consciously, makes me think about how much that activity of going from one meeting to the next one has become a brainless activity. So much so that if I actually decline a meeting and don't attend one, there is a guilt. Like, why is there a guilt? Why am I
Oh yeah,
feeling guilty over not attending a meeting that I don't need to be a part of? So
yeah,
it's yeah,
interesting.
making me think about that, and it's combined with also what you said before, right? There's fear of missing out, FOMO, and in the virtual
Yes.
world, like the impression of time is just completely distorted. So it makes a lot of sense, and I think we definitely all need to be more conscious of our health and take those necessary steps. I also keep my dumbbells at the back and my yoga mat, and in
Bravo.
fact,
Good on you.
these days I read this book called Atomic Habits. If you haven't read it, it's really really good
Atomic
one,
habits. No.
really good book,
Yeah.
and it talks about consistency over intensity.
Mm.
So I'm a person who really
Nice.
values intensity over consistency. So I will think that if I do like a 1.5 hour workout session,
Yeah.
that is way better, and I'm then in pain for the next 3 days. That is way better than me just doing like 20 minutes. What is 20 minutes going to do, right? And that's actually
Yeah.
not the right way. Then the research proves otherwise, that it's actually consistency. Even if you do 20, 30 minutes every day, that's way better than you having a very intense session and then completely being demotivated and then only lifting your dumbbells maybe 2 weeks from then. So that was also a big mindset shift, and also connected to what you're saying, right? It's the small daily habits and how you change your
Yes.
environment that helps you take those habits and
Yeah.
build your health in a very conscious way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like you bringing the context of guilt, Neha. It's not only you. A lot of people think and feel the same way. And I think now that you know this, you can be more conscious about it, see how you can change small tips and behaviors that you have during your day, and how you can leverage that also to cascade this information to other people whom are around you. Like, I think in our organization, this was a big milestone where we had even sessions of wellness being shared with employees all together virtually, and a lot of advice on how do you have conscious tiny changes of your behaviors in order to get this wellness piece always in your, I would say, mindset and in the way you do things every day. So my message here would be to you and the listeners, of course, if you would get the chance to think about this, start to consider it, and maybe also share it with everyone around you, whomever you love, because this could be a game changer. We always tend to blame everything around us on what we do and say, yeah, it's too much. This is what it needs. This is what it takes. Then you realize that actually it's not the case. It starts with your own self. And if you do those changes, you will realize that everything goes on, everything is on track. It's just in our head how we think about certain things. Um, so with that, I would conclude by saying I'm so glad that you even are asking the question to yourself, because it starts always with a question,
Yes.
and you found that question. So make sure you ask that question to yourself every morning. And I hope everyone else will find that question that they would ask themselves, which would end up in triggering a change in their way of doing certain things. Always aligning with their purpose, always aligning with their inspiration and what they want to achieve in life, but making sure that they put their wellness as the most key important priority. And priority is single. So it's a priority at the
Yes,
end.
I love that you said that, because we hear priorities and the word was not actually designed for priorities. It was single priority. And I love that
Yeah.
message. And I will take that home with me for sure. And I hope the listeners also find some value in that message. Maysoun, before I let you go, this has been a really lovely conversation. But before I let you go, I want you to complete a sentence for me. Yeah?
Okay.
So, when I drop my armor, dot, dot, dot,
I am my authentic self.
Love it. Amazing. Thank you so much, Maysoun. This was really, really great.
Or I can also add, when I drop my armor, I'm just you, her, or anyone else, because we all have certain things that we go through. So that would be my second, I would say, choice for that very interesting sentence, I would say.
I love that even more. I love it. I love it. There is uniqueness and there's a universality in all of us, right? So I really like that.
Yes.
Amazing. Maysoun, this was really, really insightful for me. And I'm so happy and grateful that you were here talking to me and sharing your stories so bravely. So thank you so much for everything.
Thank you, Neha, again for having me, for being part of such a great initiative and idea where we get to exchange experiences, help each other. Somehow, if I was able to change even this much as a little, because there's a screen, a little bit in anyone else's life, that would be for me a great, I would say, step forward and a great achievement. And with that, I hope to talk to you soon. You get me some information about your feedback on the reunion of friends, I would say, and definitely we'll catch up in the near future to see whether the context you've brought now around you realizing your guilt and your ways of seeing how you operate and work, what happened to those, what will happen to those, it would be something good for me to explore with you.
Definitely. Next catch up. Friends and how to overcome the guilt of meetings. Yes.
New ways of working. Yes, absolutely.
Brilliant.
Yes. Perfect.
Thank you, Maysoun. Have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Bye.
You too.